You would think I would have watched / made a video on Open Water before Open Water 2, but I didn't decide to re-watch it until after I watched the sequel with Mint. And then we decided that our new tradition is to watch bad shark horror movies at night. So here's the first Open Water movie after the second one. Open Water was released in 2003 and is loosely based on the story of the Lonergans who were left behind in the ocean by their scuba diving group and were never found in 1998. This movie gives a hypothetical of what may have happened while they realized they were trapped in the middle of the sea. Surprisingly, it was originally an indie film that was picked up by Lionsgate. Its original budget was around $120K and went on to gross around $55 million. It also went on to win 2 awards, Best Actress for Blanchard Ryan and Best Thriller. So, is it as amazing as the numbers say it is? I say no, Mint says no, maybe you'll say different? The beginning of the movie starts with a scene of the tide on a shore and lets you know that the story is based on true events. Always true events. Don't ever doubt that people can be stupid when it comes to Open Water because then we wouldn't have this series. We see our male protagonist Daniel, packing his SUV with some suitcases. He has a very nice house that I wish I could live in. Then we hear a conversation between him and Dawn, where he tells him to not put the boiler in because inspection is in a few weeks. I don't know what that means. He says he'll check in with them in a couple days, but will he? He then calls another person and we cut to see his wife, Susan, on the phone with someone else she works with, entertainment or something, I don't know. And I'm like, is he really gonna call her to come out into the driveway? Yes, he does. Both seem annoyed about the other and I don't know if this vacation will save their apparently failing marriage or relationship. I don't know their marital status yet because Wikipedia says they have different last names. We get a close-up shot of her pulling the door shut for some reason, and he asks if the lights are out. This doesn't matter down the line, but it would have been really funny if later they're like drowning and she's like, oh shit, I left the stove on! But they don't. He gets annoyed that she's bringing her laptop with them, and they both just seem very irritated around each other. It's very awkward to watch. Her phone rings again, and he's like, bruh. She answers and says, just second. Just second what, Susan? Daniel is like, just remember, this is a vacation. And she, in a sarcastic tone, says, I know, and boy, do we need it. It's either sarcasm or bad acting, but she does not really seem to care in the slightest. So these are our protagonists, Susan and Daniel, who are in a very tense relationship and probably hate being around the other person at this point. According to the casting, the actors' first names are actually Susan and Daniel, but Susan is credited as Blanchard. Blanchard? Whatever. Interesting. We get a scene of an airplane flying with them in it and a lizard on a beach. He's a handsome man. I would watch a movie just about his adventures. Our protagonists are on the beach now, and Daniel says he's going to get wet. That's an interesting way to phrase getting in the water, Daniel. He swims into the ocean and ominous music plays while the name of the movie shows up. It makes sure to show us just how beautiful this island is, even though we don't get to see, any of it. Daniel is a dirty hypocrite who is on Susan's laptop after giving her shit for bringing it. Then he says he's glad he made her bring it. What? I also just realized both movies have characters named Dan. Susan says the boat is going to be crowded, and Daniel says they'll just do their own thing. Yes, do your own thing in a dangerous environment. Excellent idea. All of their interactions are so passive-aggressive. There's also a very weird soundtrack for this movie. It's music from, the culture the island is or whatever, but it's just very out of place. Maybe they originally couldn't have gotten, the copyright to, mainstream songs or something. I don't know. We get a montage of them being typical tourists, and Daniel has Susan take a photo of him with his head in the mouth of a fake shark. Or dead shark. Don't worry, you'll get to do the real thing soon, Daniel. Back at the hotel, they attempt to have an intimate moment, but Susan is like, nah. It bothers me that both still have sunscreen on their noses while in bed. That would turn me off too. After they go to bed and it turns dark, Daniel turns the lights on and sits up on the bed with a rolled up newspaper as both of them look around the room. I'm going to assume there's a mosquito in there or something. He smacks the wall and then it cuts to an alarm clock going off at 6:30 a.m. I don't know why this scene was included. It's time to go on the diving boat, and goddamn, it is very crowded. At least the sharks will be deterred, hopefully. The guide's introduction to the group makes me think that they're going to Disneyland, and then he says, "We're going to the Magic Kingdom," and I'm like, what movie is this again? Someone asks if there will be sharks, and Davis, the guide, says they might see a shark or 3. We need a specific number, Davis. And I listened to this 3 times. He says the sharks are aggressive towards human beings so they don't have to worry. What? Everyone is gearing up for the dive and Susan makes sure that her cleavage is showing through her wetsuit. She must be a JRPG character. Davis explains the procedure and tells them about the international signal for help, which is waving your arms around and screaming. This will be relevant later. One of the divers forgot to bring a mask and asks if they have extra masks, and they do not. This will also be relevant later. Why didn't he bring a mask on a scuba diving trip? What an idiot. He's a bit salty towards Davis because of this and calls him Travis. I don't like this guy. Davis tells them the dive is going to be 60 feet deep and they will be down there for about 35 minutes. The time of submergence is 9:45 a.m. by the way. No Mask Dude from earlier is big mad he can't go in the water. A female diver can't equalize her ears and returns to the boat. Davis marks down that 3 divers have returned to the boat. Why are you doing that? Why don't you wait until the end of the expedition? What if she decides to go back in? No Mask Dude wastes no time asking for her mask and goes into the water. He shows his appreciation by saying, "Thank you. God bless you. I love you." Calm down. One of the attendants tells him that he needs a buddy to go down, and he's like, "Psh, come on, I don't need a buddy." He pressures the boyfriend of the girl who came back on to be his buddy. Too bad this guy isn't the one who gets left behind and eaten by sharks. He once again says, "Thank you. There's a place in heaven for you. I love you." What is he on? The weird folk music is back and we see Susan and Dan doing their thing, taking photos and doing flips. They pet a moray eel, which is a horrible idea. These fuckers have teeth pointing backwards all throughout their mouth, so if your arm goes in, it ain't coming back out. You could not pay me to pet one of those. I wouldn't want to be near fish in general, but that's besides the point. They keep petting all the dangerous ones with sharp teeth. It appears 35 minutes is up and we see everyone else returning to the boat. Davis is taking a tally of divers using the numbers from earlier and as people are getting back on the boat. Just wait to count until everyone is on board and sitting down. God damn, dude. Susan and Daniel are still underwater, oblivious to everything, and that is why you don't do your own thing when you're in a guided group in a dangerous area. Davis counts 18 people and adds on 2 from earlier, assuming all 20 divers are here, and the boat starts up and leaves. Apparently, Susan and Daniel are so far away that they don't hear the loud engine running. No one notices that 2 of the air tanks, which I assume are expensive, are missing. Susan and Daniel do some hand gestures underwater, which I will interpret as, where the fuck did the boat go? How the fuck should I know? They finally surface and do not seem very distressed that their boat is gone. They see 2 boats and attempt to get their attention by weakly waving their arms and not screaming for help. Nobody notices them, obviously. Susan asks if Daniel is sure they're in the right spot, and he says he's only 90% sure because the boat isn't there. Susan suggests swimming towards one of the boats, which Daniel shoots down. He says they're too far, and if they swim to the wrong boat, they won't be able to return to their boat. Or you could swim towards one of the boats and either find the shore or ask the other boat to help you return to land. Just a thought. He thinks they should wait for help. So they do. A boat is nearby now, and Daniel raises a fist in the air while Susan waves her arms weakly again. No screaming. Daniel informs her that this is the distress signal. Are you not in distress in the middle of the ocean right now? We cut to the scuba diving boat returning to the beach, and nobody notices the missing air tanks or the bags that were left behind. We go back to Susan and Daniel again. I guess the boat just went past them or something because they're just still in the water. Susan is disgusted by Daniel peeing in the water. What else is he supposed to do? We see something under the water very briefly. Could it be a shark? Or it could be a dolphin. Obviously, it's the latter. They don't seem at all worried about the possibilities of sharks being near them. And just as quickly as it appears, the shark leaves. Probably to go get his friends and tell them about the buffet. Susan and Daniel argue some more instead of using their energy productively. I still think they should have tried swimming for one of the boats. They put on their goggles and look underwater. More weird folk music that feels out of place playing. And it made me wonder if the sharks were the ones humming. I cannot get over this music. It is now 1:45 p.m. and they're still in the ocean in case you weren't sure. Oh wait, 1:30 p.m. My bad. Maybe they'll be out by 1:45 p.m. Daniel is listing off actors. Apparently they're playing some game, but I have no idea what it is. Susan isn't in the mood to play. I guess being stranded in the middle of the sea puts a damper on your mood or something. Daniel asks if she's hungry, as if he wants to know what she wants him to pick up from McDonald's. Seriously, Daniel, why did you bother asking her? Do you have some hidden food to offer? Are you just trying to make her aware of her hunger pains to be a dick? Susan claims something bit her ankle, but Daniel doesn't see anything until he also feels pain. There's a school of jellyfish who came up to sting them and tell them to go back to their own country. The scene has them escaping with very intense music. You'd think it were the sharks instead. Now I kind of want to see a horror movie where the monster is a jellyfish, or jellyfish plural. Susan got stung on her leg through her wetsuit and on her hand, and this is what finally brings her to tears. Those darn jellyfish, or maybe I should say jelly jerks. Jerkyfish? Jerkfish? I'll stop now. Daniel tells her, "This really sucks, but we'll get through this." Whatever you say, Daniel. Maybe you guys would have had a better chance if you didn't just hang around this area waiting. Susan says she's never heard of two people getting left in the middle of the ocean before. Apparently she's never heard about the Lonergan story or seen Open Water 2, the hit film. Daniel says he has in diving magazines. And that's it. No other details. Another boat is coming by. They decide to get its attention again by weakly waving their arms and not yelling for help. Do you guys even want to be saved? Daniel whistles, which the boat doesn't hear over the engine? So he tries using his goggles to make a bright spot, or whatever it's called, shine, reflect. That doesn't work, so they give up. Again. They did everything they possibly could. They waved an arm and moved their goggles around. Can you believe that the boat didn't somehow manage to see them? Susan wonders if maybe the diving team doesn't know they're missing. Daniel shoots that idea down. Davis would never do this to them. They were basically best friends that never spoke to each other. He does make a good point that their bags are on the boat and two of their air tanks are missing. They'll notice the two are missing. It's just a matter of when. Susan's Dramamine is wearing off and she's getting seasick. Now Daniel is mad that they got left behind. Susan apparently didn't know that you shouldn't drink ocean water and is shocked to hear that will make her sick. Who knew? Daniel learned about this from the History Channel. Thank you, television. Susan is still seasick, so she drops her weights. Then they remember they have gloves. Those probably would have been useful for when the jellyfish aggressively attacked them. Susan thinks that floating on her back will help the seasickness and apologizes to Daniel for some reason for laying on her back. We jump to 4:40 p.m. and Susan is still floating on her back. She fell asleep but is woken up by sharks swimming around her and tugging on her to see if she's potential food. She starts panicking when she realizes Daniel is nowhere to be seen until she sees him in the distance and swims to him. She puts so much effort into swimming to reach him. You know how you could have used that drive earlier? I don't think I need to repeat myself again. They reunite and we learn that they've been in the water for 7 hours. Just waiting. Susan complains about another pain on her other leg. Daniel tries to inspect it, but she tells him to leave it alone. Then she tells him to stop tapping on her leg, and he tells her it isn't him and shows his hands. I wonder what it could be. Well, it's not the sharks. It's small fish feeding on her flesh from her wound. Gross. She has a few tears in her wetsuit along the back of her leg. As Daniel surfaces after checking, we see some chunks in the water. Susan threw up. Also gross. She asks him how she could have gotten cut, and Daniel's like, well, IDK maybe rubbed up against my knife. Susan says, it's not a shark, is it? Oh God. Daniel says no, because if it were a shark, it would have just bitten her leg off. Maybe it was just a barracuda. Thanks, man. They decide to swim away from the puke. Daniel now has a pain in his leg, but it's a leg cramp. The sharks decide now is the best time to make their appearance with a jump scare. When they disappear, Susan asks if they're the bad kind of shark. Daniel puts his goggles on and discovers that the sharks did not in fact leave. Once they're sure the couple is sufficiently scared, then they take their leave. It is now later in the day, and the sharks are passing time by circling the two. Daniel screams at the water. Maybe he's trying to scare the sharks away? The way he yells is just so funny. My favorite line is, and the best part is, we paid to do this! Susan's just floating by silently, then looks at him like, you done, dude? She makes passive-aggressive comments, and they start arguing about whose fault it is. Susan blames the eel they were petting earlier. I told you, you can't trust moray eels. Daniel cannot fathom that the reason they were left behind is because they were late getting back to the boat. Susan is upset that Daniel didn't want to swim to one of the boats they saw earlier. I mean, she should have just swam without him. He says they could have swam for 5 hours and not be any closer to a boat than they are now. Are you absolutely positive about that? You guys got flippers on. Those things make you zoom. More arguing. Susan apparently wanted to go skiing, but knowing these two, they probably would have gotten lost in a blizzard and died in a cave or something. The sharks are shown circling them, and the humming starts up again, and I really think it's the sharks doing the singing. Now we see a cruise ship in the distance. Our heroes do the weak arm waving before giving up. The cruise ship is sailing very slowly, and they just sit there, swim there, whatever, and they just watch it leave. So this is the, fourth boat they've seen now that they didn't try to swim toward at all? It's a better idea than just treading water. The folk music is back, so I'm guessing the sharks will make another appearance soon. But they don't. We skip to 6:45 p.m. and there's either a sailboat or a buoy in the distance. It's hard to tell with the bad quality of the video I'm watching. If it's a sailboat though, they won't swim toward it. They decide to swim for it, so it has to be a buoy. A seagull flies close to the water and is almost eaten by a shark. The boys are back in town. Daniel has his knife out, ready to start a bar fight. He and Susan have made up as they share a kiss. She suddenly remembers that she has saltwater taffy, I think, in her wetsuit, so now they won't starve. This pisses the sharks off, who scare Daniel into dropping his knife. One of them decides to bite the bullet, literally, and takes a bite out of Daniel's leg. There's blood everywhere, and the camera has also been dropped. One of the sharks comes up to it, curious, but doesn't decide to eat it. Human flesh tastes better than plastic. Susan ties a belt around his leg to stop the bleeding. Daniel is panicking, and then we cut to sunset. We see the islanders and tourists enjoying their lives, dancing and drinking, oblivious to the couple that is being harassed by sharks. Then we cut to 11:30 p.m. Daniel and Susan are huddled together as thunder sounds. Man, they are just not having a good trip. Daniel recites Bible verses as one does when trapped in the middle of the ocean. Just ask Michelle from Open Water 2. They feel something against their feet, and the lightning strikes at just the right moment to show us the shark. In between strikes, we barely see Daniel in pain and close-ups of the sharks. I am assuming the sharks are attacking him. We cut to sunrise and get a shot of the rain falling on their luxurious house. Too bad they didn't just stay home. Or maybe that's the resort's public pool? I don't know. Either way, they're not there to enjoy it. Davis jumps back on the boat and we see their bags under a seat. He's like, "What the fuck is this?" and checks the IDs in it, then suddenly remembers the couple that he only saw once while going to the diving spot.
It was at this moment that he knew. He fucked up.
He's like, "Oh shit," and runs. Then we see, I'm assuming the manager of the hotel knocking on their door. Oh, he says he's the manager, so he's the manager. He illegally breaks in to the hotel room and sees all of their stuff there and the bed in perfect condition. Either they're very OCD about bed making or something happened to them. We go back to Susan, who is holding onto a dead Daniel. It is now 8:55 a.m. and the Coast Guard is manning up the helicopters and rescue boats to go find them. Susan finally lets go of Daniel's body and watches it drift away. One of the sharks swims up and very politely pulls the body under the water. He knows that she's grieving. The sharks all circle the body and enjoy their morning buffet. They get a bit too excited and frighten Susan. She takes off her oxygen tank and scuba gear before ducking below the water. We don't see her again, so I guess she wanted to drown herself before the sharks ate her? I'm not sure how well that worked out, but I mean, either way, she's dead. I highly doubt she was able to successfully drown herself before the sharks got her, but whatever. And that is how the movie ends. There's a scene during the credits that shows a video of a fisherman cutting open a shark he caught and their camera falls out of its stomach. And that's all the closure we get. Did Davis face any repercussions for not doing his job right? Did the sharks eat Susan immediately or save her for later? I guess you can look up the story of the Lonergans, but we're talking about Daniel and Susan here. A lot of people make it sound like the shark feeding frenzy at the end is intense and graphic, but you really don't see anything. The only gore that you see in the movie is Daniel's leg torn with blood underwater, but it's very brief. So there's not much gore violence to be seen, just scary sharks. I don't know which one was worse, this or Open Water 2. I originally remembered thinking that this movie was better, but after rewatching it, I have no fucking idea. They do a great job of making unlikable protagonists in the franchise. There are many, many ideas you can think of that they didn't try. But the main takeaway is, do not leave the dive group when you go scuba diving and stick to the fucking schedule. Thank you for watching the video. Leave a like if you liked it, subscribe if you want to see more content, comment if you've seen this movie, what your opinion is, if you want me to review more of the terrible shark movies I've watched with Mint. Thank you to my patrons on Patreon. You guys mean so much to me, and I'm so glad to have people supporting me that makes me want to keep doing stuff or making stuff or whatever. I have some merch available on Redbubble if you want to get that and be like, yeah, I'm so cool, look at this cool stuff I got. Yeah. Thank you for watching.